In this tutorial, we're going to make the case for the digital die. What we're going to try and make for this is quite a simple little case, which is also quite elegant really to look at as well. It's going to be made basically from two approximately squares of 3mm acrylic, which we'll engrave with your details in the die. And then we'll use some things called spacers in the middle, where we'll have the PCB sit, and then just on the bottom we'll have another sheet of square acrylic on there. So the end result's quite nice and tactile, and it saves us having to spend too much time on case design. So the first thing we'll do, I suppose, is set the grid up. This is Texoft 2D, and you'll be using this for this particular project. Let's set this grid up first. Each one of these dots that I see on this page that I've got in front of me here is 10mm apart. We're making something very, very small and compact, so working through this 10mm isn't really practical for us. I would say that a sort of scale of about 1mm, with the option to use half millimeters if we want, would be much more suitable. So I'm going to go to Setup, Drawing, and then Grid Coordinates like this. And once that comes up, I'm going to change my grid spacing from 10mm by 10mm to instead 1mm by 1mm with, should the situation call for it, a step spacing. That's the step in between each of those lines of 0.5 by 0.5mm, like so. I'll leave the grid lock turned on and click OK. So the grid disappears, or at least it seems that way. If we zoom in a little bit now, we can actually see our grid all over again. There it is, and each one of those is a millimetre. So what we need to do about this time is to work out how physically large this particular piece of work is going to have to be. And to do that, I'm actually going to load up Circuit Wizard. And in Circuit Wizard, I'm going to open up the project I've been working on and open up our PCB. Now, the PCB you've been working on in the tutorial, okay, looks kind of a whole lot like this one just here. There it is, okay. I'll show you how to do it for this one, okay, and then I'll look at the actual one that I've created. That is the one you're actually building out, which is very similar, but just fractionally different. There isn't a very good measuring tool built into Cinema 4D, but what you can do is you can go like this. You can go Project, then you can go PCB Components and Circuit Board, and you can draw a circuit board which goes, oh, make sure you turn the old grid lock back on, snap to grid. Yeah, you can draw a shape from the center of that particular piece of the board down to the center of this pad down here. This isn't actually snapping on very well. It should snap on perfectly, but that's approximately in the same position for each one of these pads, so it'll still work effectively the same. And what I can then do is pick that up, slide that off my PCB, and hover the mouse over it. And what that does is it tells me that my my pads that I want to solder everything together with are 36, where is it? 36 and approximately 3/4. In fact, we can round that up, so we'll call that 37. So it's 37mm wide and about 34mm tall from center to center. Yeah. So if I know that, and I know that when I manufacture that PCB, that's exactly how big it's going to be. If I match those exact dimensions in Texoft 2D, then I'll end up with a case which will click together perfectly. Alright, let's apply the exact same principle now to the circuit that you're actually working on, that you've created and soldered together by going like this. I'm going to go, well, you haven't got this circuit, so you just have to watch me do it, okay? But your one is, September, here it is. Just wait for it to open up. Here it comes, and obviously we mass produce ours for you as well, okay? Back to unpopulated view. Project, circuit board from here down to, oops, down to here. Plop. There we go. Getting that out of the way. Hover the mouse over it. 36 by 30. Okay, so 36 by 30. That's not too bad. Think. Yeah, 36 by 30. Okay, so that's the size we're going to need to work with. 36 by 30. Let's make a note of that somewhere. 36 wide by 30 high. And we'll leave that there. Just shrink that down a little bit so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, so what do we do with this information? Well, what we do is we start to draw, before we do anything else, the circles where the actual PCBs go mount to the board. And you can do that by clicking and holding the mouse button down on here, look, and going to this draw circle with a given center and radius tool. We know, or at least I know, that we're going to use M3 bolts to hold this together. An M3 bolt is a bolt which is 3mm in diameter. If it's going to be 3mm in diameter, it's going to need a 1.5mm radius, half that amount, yeah, to physically pass the bolt through. And I can put that first click anywhere I like, so I'm going to put that one just there. For my next click, what I need to do though is to make sure, because we're 36 from centre to centre, that I move across by 36 millimeters exactly. I can make sure it's exactly 36 millimeters by using the relative dimension tool just here. You see this one? If you watch that, it'll tell you. If I move that straight over there, it says 0, 0. If I move it 1 millimeter to the right, it tells me I've moved 1 millimeter to the right. So as long as I change that number to 36, and I don't let the other number, the sort of the Y component, the vertical bit, change, I know that that is now exactly 36 millimeters away. I also know that my board is 30 tall, so I can now drop down 30 millimeters exactly, making sure I don't let the other number change this time. And then finally I can slide back 36 again and click one more time. So this is basically where my PCB is going to have to mount to my case. So as long as I leave those there and never move these, then I know that whatever I design will physically fit. The other thing I'll do before I forget is I'm going to highlight all those shapes, make sure I've got the select tool on, highlight all of those. I'm going to change the colour to red so that when I put these on the laser cutter, they get cut out precisely. Okay, what do I need to do next? Well, at the moment, I've got this huge, big 30 centimetre tall and 60 centimetre wide sheet of plastic with 4 holes in it. So I need to actually cut out the physical die sort of shape as well. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a sort of square shape, because die is a square, and I'm going to go something like that. I reckon that looks about right. Forgot to click. There we are. So I've drawn that. So this is going to be the outline of my die. Again, I'll change that to red so that gets cut out for me as well. This shape's quite a harsh shape at the moment when it looks like this. So I'm going to round these corners off, and I do that with the filleted arc tool. If you click and hold the mouse on here, slide over to the end where it says filleted arc. You can then choose what radius of arc you want. I'm going to use 3 millimeters. Again, experiment. Try different things for yourself. See how you get on. I'm going to use 3 millimeters though. I just click off the edge of each of the 2 sides like this. Look, that rounds those edges off for me nicely. So I'm not going to end up with something that's going to rip people's pockets up if they try and keep it in their pockets. Okay, so that's that. So I've got the overall sort of shape. I've said that I'm going to have the PCB mounted to a bottom piece of this, now another piece stuck up on top of it. So I actually need to have a couple of these. So I might as well select all of that and then copy it, edit, copy, and then paste it like so. And I'll pop that alongside my first one. Like this. So I've got my front and I've got my back. The next thing I'll need to do is to detail the back. I think on the back piece I'll treat this as the back. All I'll probably need, done with that now, get rid of you. All I need on the back is maybe just my name, so I know it's my one. So I'm going to grab the text tool, which is here, and click, and I'll write my name, like so. And I can go into settings if I want as well. I quite like change the font. I'm feeling pretty good about Harrington. That's quite cheesy as well. Anyway, fonts aren't why we're here. I'm going to choose anything. I'm going to use this one here, Sergo Print. I quite like that. I'll have that regular, I think. And I'm going to make sure the height of the text, I don't want the height of the letter M to be 20 millimeters because that's going to be huge. I'm going to change it to about, I don't know, 4 millimeters instead for the height of my letters. Click on OK, click on OK. That looks pretty good, and I'll stick that in approximately the middle. There we go, so I know whose it is. I'm going to leave that black as well so that the computer, the laser cutter just etches that in there for me. It doesn't physically chop holes in my board. Okay, let's look at the other side now. This is the one that requires a bit more work. On here, I need to have space for 7 LEDs and also for the button as well to physically be able to push to roll the die. I did some measuring before I started recording this tutorial, and I know that to get a switch through this hole, I need to have a 7 millimeter diameter hole. So I measured the switch with a caliper. So it needs to be 7 millimeters, and also for an LED, they're 5 millimeter LEDs that we use, but the LED sits inside a little sort of plastic clip, which measures about 2 millimeters in total of its plastic. So I actually need a 7 millimeter hole as well for my LEDs to make sure they're going to fit in place and not drop out. So I need to include that. So I need some 7 millimeter circles. I also want to be quite presentable when I do this. I'd like this to be in the center. I don't really want stuff all hanging off to one side, so it looks a bit amateurish. So I'm just going to zoom in on this surface I've got here. There you go, you can see that nicely. And how do I find the centre? Well, I'm going to do that by drawing some construction lines. Construction lines are just temporary lines that you put on a piece of work that you're going to delete later. So the first thing I need to just be able to find my corners of my shape. So I'm sticking some of these in. Okay, I'm not measuring how long these are because they're coming out later. It's just purely to give me the edges of my shape. like that. If I know exactly where the corners are, then I can draw a line now from that intersection there to that one there, and that one there to that one there. So I know that this, categorically here, that is the centre of this shape. And what I think I'm also going to do is I'm going to draw a line up from there, down from there, and also left. Oh, missed. You know what? I'm just going to delete that one. And, delete. Gone. Yeah, to the left and to the right as well. Lovely job. Okay, what should we do first? Let's do the LEDs first of all. So I'm going to click on here. If I said I need a 7mm diameter, it means I need a 3.5mm radius. And I'm going to put my first dye LED, the one that's going to be the number 1, I'm going to put that right dead center like this. Okay. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to slide over to the right by a bit. Now I'm using my REL just here so I can make sure I place the one to the left an even distance away. Okay, I'm going to place that around about, I know that looks pretty good, doesn't it? That's 12mm, so let's use that. I'm going to place it 12mm. Now maybe 10mm. Yeah, 10mm away. Okay. I'm going to move over to the left 10mm, then move over to the left another 10mm, so it now says -20 on the REL thing. Yeah, I'm going to click there. I'm then going to move up a little bit because I need to be able to think about when I'm making a number 6. I'm going to move up by, what looks good, I'm going to move up by 10mm I think. I'm going to move down by 20, another click, across by 20, and then up by 20. Like that. So I know that all these are perfectly lined up and they're perfectly central on my diagram. I need one more of these holes as well to actually put my button through so I can actually spin the die. I'm going to stick that just sort of towards down the bottom here, I think, a little bit like this. That looks good. And again, that's central. What I probably also want is maybe a little bit of text, just says digital dice or something like that on the top. So I'm going to use my text tool, click anywhere really up there, digital die. What font do we feel like this time? I'm not using that anymore. It's a bit childish actually. I'm going to go back to good old-fashioned Arial. Can't go wrong with Arial. Probably my favourite font, I think. And I'll use regular. And I'm going to make sure 4mm tall letters sounds pretty good. Looking nice. And again, I'm going to stand that slap bang in the middle. This blob here is as close to that line as I think it's going to get, so that's pretty central. I have to resize a little bit. When you resize, so let me just stop that and go back to it. When you resize some stuff in 2D, a lot of people just grab a corner, left click, and then start resizing. But the problem with doing that is, as you can see from what I've just done here, is you lose the proportions of your text. So suddenly it looks a bit rubbish, looks like something Year 6 has done. So I'm just going to do Control Z, I'm going to undo. When you do resize, rather than left clicking, right click instead. And that way, look, you see as I get bigger and smaller, it's holding the proportions of that piece of text. So that way it's always going to look nice and sort of elegant when it's done. So I'm going to stick that there, like so. Again, that's central, so I'm happy with that. And what I can now do is go through one by one and using the delete key, I can delete all my construction lines. I don't want those left in there, making it to the laser cutter, otherwise, otherwise it looks all scruffy. There we are. Okay, looking good. Also now I need to get these and turn these all red, so I'm just going to draw a big box around the whole lot. Go colour, go red, those will all be now cut through. And pretty much actually that is the design for the digital die. You could now freestyle yours a little bit if you wanted to. You could put some little pictures down the side, little lightning flashes or little pictures of dies from the internet you can stick in there as well. Do remember though, the more black you put on here, the longer it's going to take to cut that out. One more thing I've just remembered as well, I'm just going to click on this text for a second. You can't really kind of see it at the moment, but every single one of these letters, as well as being black, has also got a black line drawn around it in here. You can't even see it, but it is there. If you laser cut that right now, what would actually happen is it'd end up very difficult to read because of the, after etching the sort of letters into it, and then draw this line around the outside. So I'm just going to click on the word line, just here. There you go, there's that line. Look. I'm going to take that line, I'm going to make it invisible, and I'm going to click on OK. Cosmetically, it doesn't look any different, but believe me, when you actually come to laser cut it, it will look different. I'm also going to do that over here actually now I think about it, and set that line as well to invisible, to do away with that being a problem as well. Okay, so there you have it. That is the digital die case. The last thing I'm going to do is this. Let's just think for a second about it. Imagine for a moment that what you're looking at here was a sheet of wood. okay, or a sheet of acrylic. Okay, there it is. There's an imaginary sheet of acrylic. A lot of people, when they send stuff to the laser cutter, will email in and they'll say, right, here is my design. Can you laser cut that, please? What then happens is the laser cutter will come down here. It'll chop that bit, and it will then come up here, and it will chop that bit. And what we're left with is a bit of wood where we can sort of use, this area from here to here. We could use that again, and we could use this area from here to here, and we could probably use this bit as well. But it's kind of divided it all up quite a bit. It'd be much more convenient, much better sort of sustainability-wise, if instead we took the finished product like this, and we popped it up here like that. We've got things as close together as we physically can. Okay, if we pack them together really, really, really tight, then it saves the poor old technician or the teacher having to do it for you. Okay, and it means we also waste less material, which is better for the environment. To make it easier to move things around, you can actually also group stuff together. At the moment I sort of click on here, I just get this circle. If I actually click on here, highlight the whole lot, and then go Edit and Group, the next time I come over here, I'm now picking up the whole thing all at once. Much, much more convenient. And I'm going to do that here as well. The keyboard shortcut is Control-G. I want to get used to doing that. So what I'm actually going to do to make this as tight together as I possibly can is I'm actually going to put these things like this, okay, so that they're touching. When they're cut out, they'll still come off as two separate things, but at least when I'm laser cutting, I know that the only tiny bit of material I'm wasting now is the curve on this corner, curve here, little curve here, little curve here, little curve here, little curve here. And if you wanted to, you could even take those curvy bits once they were cut off and stick them to the bottom of your digital die. So it's got its own little stand that it sort of stands on. When it's finished, it's quite nice. It looks pretty as well. So you could even do that if you wanted to. How about that? So there you go. That is how you design the case for the digital die. And I'll see you in the next tutorial.